Hey everybody, welcome to Secure the Seat Live, your weekly show here on LinkedIn, but we also stream on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. If I could stream other places, I would try, but those are the spots. I'm your host, Minda Hart. Just so much gratitude for each of you that tune in every week live, but then those who watch the replay after. I'm so thankful for each and every one of you because we can't have a show without you. You make the show, and so we're so thankful that you show up and show out every week. So make sure the comment, that section's for you. So make sure that you chime in or you have any questions. We have amazing thought leaders and experts every week. And so this is your opportunity to ask them the question. So today, if you have a question, pop it in. There's never a silly question. You're in safe company here. And so we're excited to jump in. If it's your first time joining us, you're in for a treat. Sometimes I break out my tambourine and we call it, for those who know, we call it tambourine moments. So, don't be afraid. It's not a cult or anything like that. we're all good. But I'm excited that you're here. How was your weekend? Put it in the chat. I had the great idea of going to Six Flags, the amusement park yesterday, and it sounded like a really good idea, but I'm paying for it in my body today, but it was a lot of fun. So that was what I did yesterday. And I wrote a lot over the weekend. My next book, Right Within, is on pre-order. So you can go ahead and cop that. And then also too, so many of you missed last year's writers retreat. We had over 40 students who joined us, aspiring authors and writers. And so I opened up the retreat again this year and created a hybrid version. So everybody's welcome. You don't have to be a seasoned writer. You could just have thoughts inside your head that you need help getting out. You're curious about the process. This is for you. So we'll drop the link in. Course begins in July, so you have plenty of time. And for you, our Secure the Seat audience, if you put in the code STS 2021, you get a discount. Okay, so we're moving right along. I'm excited for today's guest, Kimberly B Cummings. She is a thought leader, a new author. I'm so excited for her to talk about her new book too, and we'll drop that information so you could go ahead and just put that in the cart and cop it while you're listening to our conversation. So without further ado, I'm bringing Kimberly to the stage. Hey, Kimberly.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Happy that you're here. How was your weekend?
It was fun. So my husband actually threw me a surprise book launch party. Complete surprise, burst into tears, the whole nine. And then I think I slept for the rest of the weekend.
Oh my gosh, what a great man to have on your squad, have on your team, have by your side. So that was awesome. Again, congratulations on your new book, Next Move, Best Move. Tell everybody a little bit more about you before we jump into our conversation.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm still in shock that I actually have a book that I can hold in my hand. It just seems so odd. So I joke and say I'm a personal and professional development junkie. I was that person in the workforce, send me to the conference, let me get the certificate. I want to learn, I want to figure it out. And I really struggled, I think, in the beginning of my career. I felt like I just wasn't sure. How do you actually maximize the role that you're in, position yourself as a leader? How do you do all those things that you see people do who are much more senior than you? And that's really what drove me to write my book. I worked in career services for almost 10 years in a bunch of institutions. And I recently left a job where I was the director of global diversity talent acquisition strategy at a Fortune 100 company in financial services. So I've built a career teaching myself and others how to navigate the world of work.
Yes, I've used your tips as well. So thank you for how you show up in the world. We're going to drop your book link in the chat so that people can go ahead and it's no longer on pre-order. It's out in the world. You can go get it. You can absorb it right now. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask you, we're going to talk about how you strategize and navigate your careers, because one of the things that I found in my career is we have these goals and aspirations, but you need a strategy, right? If you want to get to the top of the ladder or build your own table, you need a strategy. And so I'm so excited for us to talk about it. Can you give our audience 3 ways to navigate their careers with ease?
So the number one thing I always say is you have to be intentional. I think, especially for women and people of color, we have this notion from our parents, like, and I know definitely my parents, that you just kind of, you get on the horse and you work hard and things are going to work out. And that is not the case. So the first thing I'd say is make sure you understand like what your long-term vision is. Where do you want to see yourself in 10 years? And it's not that you have to definitely go for this thing. It's like, just have an idea. Like, what is it that you want to navigate yourself towards? Because that's almost like your North Star to make sure you're headed in the right direction. Tip number 2, I'd say, is be super duper actionable with the things that you do every single day. My book is called Next Move, Best Move, because I believe you should not make any career move unless it actually is your best move. Like, there's no point in doing it thinking it's going to be great. Make sure as you're making career decisions, you are excited about the decision and you believe that it aligns to whatever your next step is, or that 10 or 5-year vision for yourself. Last but not least, always surround yourself with amazing people. I love being in environments where I am not the smartest one in the room, where I am challenged. People always joke and say I seek out mentors who are really, really tough on me, because sometimes if you are a high achiever, and I'm not sure if you say this about your audience, Minda, but I say it about mine, is that if you're spending your free time listening to career information, you generally are or aspire to be a high achiever, because you probably wouldn't be listening if you didn't care about your career. So surround yourself with those people who can check you. Like, you want people who can tell you when you're doing right, tell you when you're doing wrong, to make sure that you can actually make those intentional steps.
Absolutely. And just your book title alone is a tambourine moment, because you can, if you have to think about that next move. And I don't know about you, but I try to make the best move every time I can, right? Sometimes it works out, sometimes, but it was my best attempt at it because I had a squad of people, right? I was intentional about it. And I'm just so glad that you shared that. Again, if you have any questions, make sure you pop them in the chat and we'll get to them in just a bit. But let's talk more about the new book, Next Move, Best Move. I love that title, transitioning into a career you'll love. First of all, why is it important to have a career you love?
Because if you're spending 40 plus hours a week at work, and this may be a little harsh to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. If you're 40 plus hours a week, and I was working 60 to 70, if I'm very honest, when I was in corporate America, if that sucks, your life is probably going to suck a little bit too, because Saturday and Sunday is not enough time to recoup all the time you spent at work, thinking about work, dreading work, logging off from work. You have to make sure that there is some type of passion, some type of excitement. But what I tell folks is it's not that every single day is amazing. So I'm married. Definitely this past weekend, my husband threw me a surprise party. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the best husband in the entire world. But when I walk back through the house and I see the trail of all the things he didn't put away when he walks into the house every day, I'm a little upset. It's not that every day is happy and blissful in work and relationships, partnerships. It's that there is a base level, the same way there's a base level that makes you not break up with a partner. There's a base level in that job that you're like, all right, well, today was terrible, but I'm still going to get up tomorrow and it's going to be all right.
That part. Maybe you woke up this morning, you're like, oh, I don't want to get up to that Zoom. I don't want to get up to that Microsoft Teams, right? But you did it, you're here, and you're going to make your next move your best move, because we have the control over that part. Why did you write this book? And what should folks expect?
So the fun fact is that people thought I had a book well before I had one. I do a lot of speaking engagements, probably 50 plus a year, probably a lot more now. And people would come up to me when I was done and be like, oh my gosh, like, where can I buy your book? And for years I was like, I don't really have one of those. I'll work on it. And my mentor who wrote the foreword, Lindsay Pollack, she finally sat me down. I was like, you're going to write a book. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready. She's like, doesn't really matter. She had me buy a book on how to write proposals for my book. I put it together and then got introduced to my publisher, Wiley, and it just happened so fast. I knew I'd write one eventually, but the real why, I think about why I committed to it, even though like my mentor challenged me, I could have procrastinated more, but the real reason is because I wish I had a book that told me what to do. I think there's so many times in our careers where we could be lost, we can get inspiration, we could read other books sometimes, and it seems so high level that you don't actually know what to do. So I wanted something that I could have read in some of the moments in my career earlier on where I was like, I'm lost. Like, I'm really not sure what my next step should be. So in my book, I tell stories every single chapter. I break down a concept, but I literally have a section called Your Next Move, where it literally tells you exactly what you need to do to take in the concepts from that chapter. I wanted it to be actionable and a takeaway that people can take with them after they hear me speak, or if they're just, browsing through Barnes and Noble and looking to make their next move.
I love it. I love it. And you already put in the work in for so many years. So I'm glad that you have this opportunity to expand the conversation through book. And shout out to Lindsay. I had the opportunity of joining her on her book tour virtually. So another good book to add to your collection. We have a few questions that have come in, but I want to pass this one up to you. You mentioned a 2-year strategy. Someone says, does it really take 2 years?
Great question. So it's not that it really takes 2 years, but earlier I said that 10-year vision, right? So you know where you'd like to be in 10 years. And if you're working with me, I ask you to cut it in half again. So where do you want to be in 5 years, which is, a bit more reasonable than 10 years. But then we want to cut it again into like that 2.5 year piece of where do you need to be in 2 years to be there in 5 years to be where you want to be in 10 years. So it's not that you need to wait, like sit in your role for 2 years, but you need to take the strides needed in order to get to that next level. So for some folks, I have an assessment in my book to kind of tell you, are you in the right role? Do you need to move someplace else? Do you need to go higher, lateral, whatever it is, to kind of figure out where you are? And once we know where you are, then we can break down what the gaps are between where you are right now to where you'd like to be in that 2-year, 5-year realm. And we think about activities you need to take every single 6 months to build out to. So, but it's not saying you need to wait 2 years to get a promotion. You may be in a place right now where you have to work on a few other things to get a promotion in 6 months to a year. So no, we're not asking you to wait forever. You can make some moves right now, depending upon where you are.
Yes, make it those moves right now. You can do it. Okay. Great question. Thank you for that. We're going to drop Kimberly's link in, because if you're not sure what your next move should be, but you want to make it your best move, make sure you drop it. You go ahead and get the book. We're dropping the link in right now. Make sure you support, because the more we have access, right? You may not have the opportunity or the resources to hire a career coach, or you may be in a space where you just need something. These are tools right now that you don't have to wait for the professional development stipend to kick in or any of that stuff. You can go ahead and get it right now. I love that. Another question that I saw a couple people in the chat talking about is, what if you don't know what your next move should be? Do you have any insight on maybe the first step they could take?
Yes, and I think that is so common. And you have to really sit back and take an assessment of yourself in your career. I think there are a million career assessments that you can do out in the world, but I think you should always start with looking at yourself. Where have you been? What have you done? What do you like? What do you not like? And what are the skills that you want to continue to maximize? So I tell my clients all the time, you need to strengthen your strengths. Yes, sometimes, we got to work on some of those weaknesses occasionally, but imagine having a career that is connected to the strength that you have. I love The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. So what are the things that have you operating in your zone of genius, not just zone of competence or excellence? We want to get you to that zone of genius. And I think once you understand what those things are, you can start thinking about mapping them into various careers or next steps for yourself. And I know I learned this when I was in high school, but when they had you pick out colleges and they said, you want like your reach schools, you really don't want to go there, but you can go there schools. And then like the ones like in between, it's like, okay, it's a step above reach. I think about careers the same way. It's like, okay, what are the schools that if you got in today, you would go? What is that job you'd say yes today? What is a job that's like, okay, you'd be happy, but it's not like the most exciting? And then the one where you're like, well, if I got to get a paycheck, like what are the jobs down there? And you start thinking about your strengths and how those map into various areas, and then just make a decision. I think sometimes that's the hardest part, is that we think about it so long that we end up not doing anything, but your career is fluid. It's what could you see yourself doing for a year to 2 years? What skills are you gaining that could potentially get you to your 5-year and 10-year mark?
Love all of that. Well, I got to get my tambourine again, because you said strengthen your strengths. Okay. Strengthen your strengths. Did you hear that? That's a tweetable moment. That's a LinkedIn moment. Make sure you strengthen your strengths. And one way you could do that, we're going to drop Kimberly's link in the chat again so that you can get the book, because that's how we strengthen our strengths. And maybe you feel like, well, maybe I'm not in this place. Get it for somebody else who they could use this. So get one for you and get it for someone else, because that's how we help others secure their seat as well. We don't just get to our zone of genius and kick our feet up and put our hand behind our head and say, we got it. We help others as well. And so I'm so excited. I'm going to go into my next question that I have for you. And sometimes as women of color, people of color, we downplay our achievements. So we make that next move, right? And we make it our best move, but we shy away from telling people about it. Why do you think we do this? And what advice can you give us to stop shying away from those zones?
This is something I'm honestly still working on. I think being on a book tour, I've talked to you, I've talked to other great authors, and there's like, no, you have to tell people all the time you have a book. And I'm like, do I really? Like, can I just drop a link somewhere and maybe they'll figure it out on their own? But what I'm learning in this process too is that when you want to grow and excel, because of course you made your next move, right? You're super excited about the move, you got there. But there's a bit of socialization that needs to happen. And if we think about it in the context of the workplace, you can do great work by yourself and that's fine. But when you're really looking to, when I say climb the corporate ladder, I don't just mean in corporate. I mean, I've come from higher education, nonprofit, wherever you are. There needs to be socialization about the work that you do. And that not just magnifies your work, but it allows you to have more opportunities to help others and allows you to set yourself up for those next moves that are happening. So I look at it as almost like helping and assisting myself, like in getting to the next level and helping others. Like, what is the impact I can have through my work? If more people know about the work that I'm doing, I can have more of an impact on others and have more opportunities. So it definitely feels icky sometimes. But again, if you made that next move and you are where you rightfully belong in the workplace, you also need to remind yourself, like, you are here. You did what you needed to do to get here. You deserve to be here. And you're not bragging about something, because it could feel like bragging, even though it's not. You may feel like you're bragging, but honestly, you're just stating facts about who you are and how you got there. It's not some inflated story that you built up about yourself. So you need to celebrate.
Yes, celebrate it. And, I think too, it's the stories that we tell ourselves, right? We're like, well, you have to stay humble. You can't brag. And it's like, no, just like you said, you put in the work. And if we only know about it, then the people who need to know about it can't help us in the ways that we need to make another next move, right? And so it may not feel comfortable, but just like with anything, practice. So, test it out. If that's one of your kind of pain point areas, in the chat right now, let's practice together, right? Tell us something that you just, a win of yours. Share one of your achievements in the chat, because, put it out there. We have to practice so that people know how awesome you are. And you've put the work in. As the young kids say, you knew the assignment, right? You knew what to do and you nailed the assignment. So you got to let people know that you did that, right? So so excited for that. We're at the time in our show, Kimberly, where it's one of my favorites, actually. I am a lover of grits and rap lyrics, and it's our bonus question. Well, first of all, how do you like your grits, if you eat grits?
So I definitely eat grits, and I prefer them with butter and cheddar cheese.
Okay.
That's the ultimate.
Okay, I was hopeful that I wouldn't have to clutch the pearls I'm not wearing, because if you were going to say sugar, I was like, man, too good to be true. Right?
Those people aren't allowed on the show. You need to kick them off promptly.
We love you from afar until you get yourself together. But in the meantime, go and get Kimberly's new book. We're dropping it in the chat again. Next move, best move. You need that in your life, especially if you put sugar in your grits. You definitely need that. But what is your favorite rap lyric and why? Because good bowl of grits and a good rap lyric, it just does the body good.
As when I saw this question, I'm normally not stumped or nervous, but I got so nervous about this one because I'm someone who listens, but I couldn't really think of a lyric. So I went looking through like my favorite songs, and then I realized most of them are wildly inappropriate because all of my hype music, there's a curse word like every other word. I was like, I can't pick that one. So I'm going to pick Top Off with Beyonce and Jay-Z. And I love when Beyonce says, I'm the only lady here and the realest one in the room. I break the internet top 2 and I ain't number 2. I'm like, I tell myself before I walk into any environment that I'm scared, it's like, it doesn't matter. You're top 2 and you're not number 2. Like all the time. That's like my hype lyric whenever I go anywhere.
I love it. You know, my favorite Beyonce is talking ish B. Okay. Like,
Yes.
just to remind people, you know, like she has this really great regal presence, but when she needs to let you know, she gonna remind you, I'm top 2 and I ain't number 2. So I love. It's a great way to go into the week, y'all. So thank you for that. Beyonce lyrics are always welcome. She's the greatest rapper alive, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. The other question is, everybody watching has the capacity to be a leader. You don't have to wait for someone to give you that title. We can all lead. And for all of our leaders watching, what is one tip that you would give to make the workplace better than we found it?
Gosh, I start my book. And I added this chapter really, really late. Late in the game, almost when they told me like, you're going to have to pay for more edits if you add this in. And I was like, but I got to do it. And I wrote that serving as a people leader is not a rite of passage. It's a privilege. So I am very passionate about leaders taking an active presence in the workplace. And I think to make the workplace a better place, I think the number one thing leaders, especially people leaders, need to know is that developing your team, helping them develop career strategies is not an extra bonus. Like that is your job. It is your job to make sure that people on your team know what their next step is and be unapologetic about helping them get there and stop worrying that even if they want your job, like you need a succession plan, you need one. Allow your team members to be developed by you and not just be this taskmaster. Like, okay, I need you to do this, do this, do this, do this. Development is the piece of being a leader, a people leader in the workplace that so many people forget about. And it drives me crazy. So if you want a better workplace for your team, for your organization, don't forget about developing your talents in the process, because that honestly is going to help with retention significantly if people feel like there's someplace they can grow and they're not just worried about executing tasks every day.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. I'm seeing people, I see my brother, Stephen A. Hart, he said, leaders need to lead. And that's, that's what we got to do. So excited. This has been such a great conversation. I have time to take one last question out of, I see the chat going wild. I'm seeing people saying they are already ordering the book right now. So thank you for that. One quick question. Someone said, what if and I'm paraphrasing because it's kind of long, but what if your next move didn't turn out to be your best move? How do you hit reset? I think many of us need the answer to that question. So I'll send that over to you, Kimberly.
I think that's completely common. Remember, I joke and I say that job descriptions are sometimes like Christmas lists, right? You hope you get some of the things on there, and companies are putting their best foot forward during your interview process in the same way you are putting your best foot forward in the interview process. So sometimes you can get into something and it turns out to not be what you'd like it to be. And I think that's the time where you just kind of have to sit down and determine, is there something you can learn from this job? Is there something that is going to help you get to the next level if you master it where you are? The example I give is when I worked in higher education, my goal was to be a director of career services for a very long time. And I looked at all the different careers and how people got there, all the leaders and rock stars in career services. And one of the things I was missing was ops and data assessment. When I tell you, Minda, if you put me in a spreadsheet and tell me to do a pivot table, I will cry. You will see real tears come down my face. But I knew I had to learn it. So I spent a good amount of time, almost 2 years in a job I did not really like, because I knew I needed that skill to make me more competitive for the next role. So I think I say that all to say is that see if there's something you need to learn from that environment because you're in it. Get what you can in the role because you're in it. And if you're like, nah, Kim, you're lying, I don't want to be there, I got to get out, then it's almost we need to hit the reset button, go back to the self-assessment, figure out what it is that you want to do. How did this pivot teach you an area you don't want? Because sometimes jobs do that, confirm that you want something or confirm that you don't. So it's normal. And then see how you can get back in alignment with your 5 and 10 year vision. Many times it's going back to networking, building great relationships to see how you can pivot, to make sure that you're more informed. I teach my clients that you need insider information before you make any career move. So who do you need to talk to? How can you confirm that this next step is going to be better than the last? But I just encourage you, don't be upset. This is something that many of us, I think everyone goes through, where you get into a job and 6 months in, or maybe even 90 days in, you're like, I shouldn't have done this. So it's completely normal.
Yes, I have thank you for that. That was a whole word. I have definitely made career transitions where I've thought this was my next best move. And then you get into the environment and you're like, maybe not. But as Kim said, how can you make work for you, right? Maybe you're in a position right now where you are able to leave, but what can you learn? What can you garner from being in this situation? There's always something we can pull from to prepare us for our next move. Okay. So, so many of you are sharing some of your highlights. Okay. We see you in the chat. We're going to share just a couple on the screen. And I know sometimes people have a hard time, but congratulations on just completing your PhD. Awesome. Love it. Balancing a lot of responsibilities and you're still securing your seat. Congratulations. Mike, do we have another one we could throw up there? I had a very successful weekend at a pop-up at a Kings Plaza mall. Yes, I don't want to butcher it, but you all can see it on the screen. McClaw Beauty Products. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but drop it in the chat so that we can find out more about those products. I completed my PMP project management certification. Yes, shout out to all of you. Continue to highlight those achievements, right? You put the work in, people need to know. Kimberly, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Is there any final thoughts or words that you would like to give our audience today to send them out into the week?
Yeah, so I think I always love to share the Manifest Yourself Manifesto. Manifest Yourself is the name of my company. And the manifesto is you must believe in yourself and your vision. When you do this, you will manifest the life you desire. I think in any move you're looking to make, we're talking about careers today especially, you have to believe that you're able to do it. That is the first step in making it happen. So get very clear on that vision and then start making your next move your best move. And of course, go ahead and get my book.
Most importantly, we're going to drop that back in the chat for all of you. So if you're watching it live or you're watching the replay, make sure you go and cop next move, best move, because we all want to be making our next move our best move. That's just, I mean, there's never going to be a time in your life where you're not going to have to make another move. And you want to make sure you're being intentional. You want to be strategic. And so just thank you all for showing up today. Appreciate you all. And one thing I'll say too is, if you missed any of our past episodes, you can always go to YouTube, put in Secure the Seat Live, watch all of the amazing content, but most importantly, share today's episode and share with a friend to go ahead and get that book as well. Again, thank you to all of you. Keep securing your seat, and we'll see you next Monday at noon.